Okay, so let's talk about Katina. All right, so if you've ever score run or talked to anyone about score running the game, you've probably heard about Katina. If you ask any score runner their most frustrating level, Katina will probably be in the top 3, if not top 1, because there's a lot going on. It's very frustrating to get a high score, and it's very kind of random and chaotic. So today, I've recently figured out a lot of the mechanics to understand and develop more concrete strategies for how to actually play this level in a score run. So we're gonna go through a lot of that, and hopefully we can all walk away with a better understanding of what we're actually doing here. First off, we're gonna go through general strategies, and we're gonna talk about the hatches themselves, when they actually spawn, why you want them to spawn even, and when it's important to use the mechanics of how they spawn and how to use that to your advantage within the context of a score run. And I'll put timestamps in the YouTube video so you can jump around to whichever parts you are looking for. Before we get too far though, let me point out this. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of the small stuff or the early game, because most of it doesn't matter, but just so everyone knows, in any all-range level, Katina is an all-range mode stage, at the 15th kill, you will get a laser upgrade. Or 15th point specifically. The kill after the 15th, on or after the 15th point, you will get a laser upgrade. So if you're retrying Katina, don't try it with single lasers. It is not worth the effort. But in the intro stage of the level, just go find your 15th kill. Make sure it dies on screen, because if this goes off screen, it will despawn, and then you will have to restart the level if you want to get lasers. Because that is the only laser upgrade available in Katina, is that 15th kill. So if you're stuck in a loop in a total hits run and you're retrying this level over and over, you need to know that. All right, so first things first, before we get too deep into things, the general idea of the whole level is kill ships as quickly as possible, because generally speaking, the level will replenish ships at the rate that you're killing them. There's some subtleties to when exactly those respawns happen, but for the majority of the level, you do not need to worry about hatches or the timing of the hatches. Just kill a lot of ships as quickly as you can, because you want as many ships to spawn throughout the level as you can. The strategies to do that can be a little bit hard to figure out. What I have found works absolutely the best is basically anytime you have a moment where there's not a lot of enemies in front of you, take a peek at the map and see where the biggest cluster of enemies is, and then turn until you're facing the middle of that cluster. What I see happen a lot, and what I used to do for the longest time, is you might start turning toward the group, then you get distracted by the edge of the group. You kill all those. By the time you're done with that, they're gone. So we'll look at this video of mine from a while ago. So I go off, grab this gold ring, and I am facing away from the map, the middle of the map, with all of this stuff behind me. I wasn't looking at the map at the time, but this is where you should be looking at the map, and you see, hey, there's this big chunk of enemies right here in the middle. That's what I want to be shooting at. So I start turning toward the middle. Hey, look, all the enemies, the big cluster is right there, just off screen to the right. But as I'm turning, I see a handful of enemies fly right in front of me, and I get distracted by those, shooting. Suddenly, after I'm done with that, this whole cluster is behind me. If I had just kept turning, you can see, here's a big bunch over here even in front of me now. I could have gone for those, but I just kept going over here to the edge of the group, and by the time I'm done cleaning up that left edge, the cluster has moved, and now I have to turn even more to get to the big group. What you want to do is keep the biggest cluster of enemies on screen at all times. Do not get distracted by the little stragglers off to the left, or even if you get a group of 4 that's right in your face, take some pot shots at them, keep turning. Do not get distracted by smaller groups. Look at the map, figure out where the biggest cluster is. Right there. This is a good turn right here, and I still stopped short. Look at that. There's a massive line of enemies right there. It's just off screen, right over here. And I turn and I stop. If I turn just a little bit more, you can see the edge of the group right over there. If I just kept turning, there'd be so many enemies right in front of me that I could be killing, and then I don't keep turning, and I just don't find that group. And this is what can happen, especially if you're new to score running this level. It's like you can keep doing this over and over and over. Where are the enemies? Where are the enemies? A lot of times they're just off screen, or you get distracted by a moderate sized group when there's another group, again, just off screen or just behind you or whatever. You don't want to get distracted by those smaller groups. You have to focus on where the biggest cluster of enemies is, because it's not about emptying the field of enemies. It's not about killing every enemy. It's killing as many enemies as you can as quickly as possible. Some people just have a better mindset for that. If you're like the completionist for video games and you like doing 100% getting all the items every time, that's not the mindset you need for this level. You need to have the mindset of, where is the biggest group? Let me go for that. Ooh, shiny. Let me go for the biggest cluster of things and ignore all the other small stuff. All right, so after you have mastered the concept of killing ships quickly, then we can start talking about hatches. It's easy, like when you first start learning a level, a lot of times people will talk about the hatches a lot, which it is an important thing and it is very helpful, but it can be it's very easy to get zeroed in on the hatches themselves and lose focus on this first priority, which is killing ships. If you're getting the hatches to spawn, that gets you 24 extra points at the end of the level. But that 24 points is nothing compared to the 50 to 100 points you could be netting with better strategies on how you're killing groups of ships. Like, before I would be like struggling to get 240 with hatches open. Now that I've gotten better at this kind of stuff, I can get 250 without hatches. Like, it's like, this is infinitely more important than this. But once you've mastered this, we can move on to priority number 2, which is trying to get the hatches to spawn at the end of the level. So let's talk about that. How does that even work? The way this works at most basic level, after 3 minutes of in-game time, which translates to usually 3 minutes 40 seconds, depending on how you're using the timer, right there. So the core opened on timer because he hadn't destroyed all the hatches yet. But what's cool about this, and also a little bit painful, is because the hatches are already open, when the core spawns, they will stay open. So you can see the hatches are still down and safety will be killing those afterward, and they're worth 6 points each. So if you get the hatches open at the end of the level, you get 24 free points. However, if the hatches are closed when the core spawns, they stay closed, you're losing out on 24 points. So that's why the hatches become important, but it only really matters at the end of the level, because again, the game spawns enemies as quickly as you kill them. In the grand scheme of things, getting more hatch cycles in a level doesn't translate to more points. What translates to more points is getting more kills, and then getting hatches open is the only time the hatches actually matter for those cycles. So how do we do that? How do we make that happen? Let's talk about the mechanics of the hatch spawns, because that's something that's been ambiguous for a really long time. Shout outs to Sonic Dreamcaster, who I think the lead on the team for the decomp project for Star Fox 64. They also made a port using that decompilation called Starship, which is a port of the game that works natively on PC with a lot of really nice graphical and quality of life features. But yeah, anyway, so we have the code of how this level works now. So basically the way it works, when the hatches open, it will spawn ships until there are 38 ships on the level. And then once the hatches close, the hatches will open again once that number of enemies drops below 30. What that means in practical terms is after the hatches close, you just need to kill 8 enemies to open the hatches again. And I went through, and it's pretty reliably, probably instant. The delay before hatches, I went through, counted, okay, here's the timestamp for when the hatches closed, here's 8 points after that, here's how long it took for the hatches to open after those 8 points. And it's like from 0 to 3 for almost every instance. There's a couple outliers, there's a 4 over here, And then there's some weirdnesses where there's -2, which is like that's due to enemies dying slowly or getting +1s, whatever. It's pretty reliable that within 3 seconds, probably less of your 8th kill, you will get the hatches to spawn. But that was something we hadn't noticed for years of playing this game because of this second point right here. The hatches stay open for exactly 10 seconds. The number of enemies you kill while the hatches are open doesn't actually matter for the timing of the hatches, because over here, let's look at Livy's video. Really good example. So hatches just opened. You can see the hatches open on screen. She throws a bomb right there, gets a ton of kills. Look at how many points she's getting. So many ships died right there. But what it does, because the hatches are open, if you watch the map, there was the bomb that the enemies have stopped spawning from the middle of the mothership. She throws the bomb, and immediately we get a few spawns there, and then a whole bunch more there. So while the hatches are open, every kill you make gets pretty much instantly replenished. So what matters for respawning the hatches is after they're closed. Now when she kills 8 ships, they'll spawn back in. So that's a handful. That's probably close to 8 right there. And there, yeah, hatches spawned right there. I missed the voice line from Bill, but yeah, you saw another spawn from the mothership. So yeah, it really is that simple. It was just weird for a long time because you're never really aware of when the hatches close. So it's hard to time that. But because we know now, looking at the code and by my testing, that it is 10 seconds and it is a reliable 10 seconds. So the way you can use that is by looking at a timer, much like what I have here. So you can look at the timer. Okay, so we're watching on the left here. Hatches aren't open yet. We'll wait for Bill's voice line. Hatches are open. He says the hatches are open, timestamp 244. So now we look for 254. If you make a mental note, if it says 244, so at 54, that's when I need to pay attention to how many ships I'm killing for the hatches. 254. So what you could do in this case, find a big group of enemies, throw a bomb, hatches are going to open again right away. Yeah, so 1, 2, okay, she throws a bomb. Wait for it. The hatches are open right there. So like, once you understand those mechanics, you can actually use a timer. And if you're good at like peeking at that timer across the way, you can make the hatches spawn more quickly. So for instance, this is the time between hatch spawns. And you can see most of these are like close to 20. I have the average down here, 20.3, 19 seconds. So it's like around 19 to 20 seconds on average. But then you get outliers like this, 14 seconds over here. Again, that's because when Kaio, after the 10 seconds, he like immediately, I don't know if he threw a bomb or he just killed a big group of enemies, but like he did that so quickly that the hatches spawn pretty much instantly after they close, because that's 14 seconds. So if you know those timings of things, you can manipulate the hatches much more reliably, which makes getting the hatches open at the end of the level much more doable just by knowing how the timer works and how those kills work. So like for instance, if Livy just had hatches open at 317, right? So if she throws a bomb right here, that's not going to make the hatches open any more quickly. And if she's trying to get the hatches open, because we're close to 340, we want those hatches to be open at the end of the level. So if we throw one here at 325, hatches are still open because it's less than 10 seconds. It's not 327 yet. So now what you would do is you'd see, oh, 327, now let me throw a bomb to make sure the hatch is open because the core is going to come out around 340. So we want those hatches to open quickly. Or you could even wait, say, okay, it's going to come out 340, let me throw it at 332, so it will still be open, like make sure the hatches are still open at 340. So you can do a lot of that subtle timing management if you know when the kills actually matter for that purpose. So I kind of outlined here a loose strategy you can use. And you just, again, look at 320. It's like, okay, we're hitting 320. Hatches could open, or the core could come out within 20 seconds. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the hatches out quickly. It's like, because even if you don't know the exact time, because like on console, lag happens a lot. So sometimes it comes out at 340, sometimes it's 345, sometimes it's 355. I've seen all of those numbers. It's hard to know exactly when it comes out, but if you can make the hatches spawn more quickly, then you can increase your odds. So for instance, again, looking back here, your average hatch timing is around 19 to 20 seconds. That means they're open for 10 seconds and closed for 9. That's roughly a 50-50. There's a 50-50 chance of getting the hatches open with the core. But if you know how to manipulate this timer and you get a 14-second hatches, suddenly your odds are closer to 2 out of 3 because the hatches are open for 10 and closed for 4. Like, that is way better. So even if you're not, like, even if you can't specifically manipulate the timing, your odds go way up of getting hatches open at the end of the level if you can speed up the hatches at the end. Next up, so obviously you want the hatches to open before the core comes out, right? The other element of this is after the core comes out, the hatches can no longer spawn enemies. If you don't have enemies available on the field at the end of the level, even if you do get hatches, you can't clean up those enemies, so you're missing out on a lot of points. Again, the max number of enemies on the field is 38. So if instead you have 25 because the hatch is open and then the core immediately came out, you're missing out on 13 enemies worth of points right there. So again, this is where it comes down to more guesswork and kind of getting a feel of the level. How much lag have I made? How much extra time do I expect there to be before the core comes out? Because you can get a feel for that. It's never going to be exact, but you can get a pretty good feel for that. So what you can do is use that knowledge of, hey, it's 8 seconds, or it's 8 kills after 10 seconds from the previous hatches. So if you have a guess, let's say 345. I haven't created all that much lag, but there's been some, so I'm guessing 345 is when the core comes out. Then you can pay attention to when the previous hatch comes out and say, okay, he's at 320. The last hatches came out at 320. So maybe I don't throw a bomb because I know my average is around 19 to 20 seconds. If I'm just killing enemies with lasers, it's going to be around 20 seconds from this 320 number to 340. So if I just play normally, hatches are probably going to come out at 340, and then I'll get 5 seconds, maybe 7 or 8 if I created more lag than I thought. Like, you can use that to at least have a guesswork approximation of how to get the hatches to come out when you want them. Or if instead of 320 you're looking at 325, okay, so my hatches came out at 325. Well, if I wait the full 20 seconds, it's going to be at 345, which is when I'm expecting the core to come out. So I need the hatches to open faster. I need them to come out faster so they can actually have some time to spawn enemies before that 345. So you can start, again, this takes a lot of experience with the level. It's still a good bit of guesswork, but once you can get a feel for that, you can actually start making decisions on, like, okay, how can I try to manipulate these hatches to get the cycle that I'm looking for, instead of just playing the level 100 times and hoping you get lucky. Last thing to throw on top of this is, if you feel like you have a pretty good guess, if the hatch is just opened and you think you have another like 6 seconds or so before the core comes out, then you can use, again, that knowledge that, just like over with Livy's video, the enemies are going to spawn if you kill them while the hatches are open. So like, you can be like, okay, I know that I'm going to get more enemy spawns here. So for the first 3 seconds of this hatch cycle, I'm going to throw a bomb, kill like 12 ships, then they're going to respawn from the hatches, and then the core will come out. So I got 12 kills from the bomb, and then I got 12 ships respawned, then the core came out. I can kill these 12 ships with charge shots, get +1s bonus points. Suddenly I'm up 12 points over what I would have been if I hadn't thrown that bomb when I did. So again, a lot of strategizing you can do around this. Sometimes you want to save the bomb to make the hatchets come out before the core. Sometimes you want to spend the bomb so that you get more ship spawns because the core is going to come out anyway before the hatches close. So there's a lot of strategizing you can do around it. I'm definitely not quite there yet, but I can see the ideas of how to make this work if I can, because it's a lot of things to think about all at once. Again, start off just finding a way to reliably kill ships as fast as possible. That's going to take a lot of your focus. If that's all you can focus on that. And then once you get that down pat, then you can start splitting your focus and be like, okay, when are the hatches coming out? How can I use this timer? Figure out how to make these come out more quickly. And then once you've got a grasp on that, then you can start thinking about, okay, I'm guessing that the core will come out at this timestamp. How do I nudge the hatch spawn timer, all while not losing focus on killing ships as quickly as possible? Because if you are so focused on this that you're not killing the ships that are in front of you, then you're losing points trying to gain points. You might lose 20 ship kills trying to focus on this timer. Suddenly you've lost all the benefit that you're getting from this. So again, there's a lot of layers to this, and that's why I set it out in priorities. This is your first priority, then this. Once you can manage that, do this. Once you can manage that, do this. But now that we have a mechanical understanding, I feel like we can actually start working toward developing the skill level it takes to actually do this stuff instead of just playing the level 100 times and hoping it works out. So yeah, hopefully that helps a lot of people. I know I feel a lot more confident in this level moving forward. We'll see how that pans out. Maybe I'll reach 300 points someday. Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, hopefully this helped everyone. I'll put, again, links in the description of Sonic's explanation, the GitHub stuff for the logic of the Mothership, links to the spreadsheet that I'm using here, and maybe a couple other videos. But yeah, again, hopefully this helps everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, have yourselves a great day. I'll see you next time.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.